The Biggest Loser was a popular TV show from 2004 to 2012. This is the first show of its kind to use reality TV to talk about health and wellness and fitness. The problem is that this show was never really about health. It was rage bait before rage bait ever existed. And now Netflix has brought back a shiny new docuseries that, while it does admit to a few of its flaws, it misses the truth about what this show is actually about and what it actually taught us as the consumers. Sure, they bring in the brutal workouts, the weigh-ins, and even the emotional breakdowns on camera. But what they don't do is dig into the bigger problem, the unrealistic standards, the lack of mental health support, and why so many contestants could never maintain the results once the cameras stopped rolling. And I feel like I have a bit of a unique perspective on this because I am lost over 40 pounds naturally myself, and I'm also a licensed therapist. And so I can see through the lens of this mental health perspective, as well as understand the mindset of someone who is trying to and has lost weight. Because if you've ever wondered why weight loss and diets and exercise feel impossible, some of the mindset that you took from the show could be a big reason as to why you haven't seen success. First, let's talk about the weigh-in obsession. This show's hyperfixation was on the weigh-ins. Each week, contestants would go and be weighed in. If you've never seen the show, I highly recommend that you go watch the documentary regardless. But if you've never seen the show's sort of primary premise is who could lose the most weight. And if you've been around this channel for any length of time at all, you know what I'm going to tell you, which is that the weight on the scale involves so many different factors. And the case was true then and it's true now. But by hyperfixating and making it a contest, a literal contest to lose as much weight as humanly possible, the message gets sent that the number on the scale is the thing that matters most. It doesn't matter how much muscle you build. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. It only matters what that one single number indicates on the scale, because that's the person who won. It wasn't the person who was the most fit, because there's no real way to quantify that. But what they could quantify was a number that's on the scale. And when you do that and you make it a contest and a competition, that means that people are going to do whatever it takes to lose that weight. They talked to one of the contestants, and I forget his name, but I'll put it over here. But he was essentially talking about, like, that was his goal. His goal was to win this whole darn thing. When you make it a competitive thing, people are going to do whatever it takes, legal or not, to lose the weight and be the winner of this money. When you monetize it and make it so that your health is not the prize at the end of it, which again, doesn't make for great TV, right? But when you monetize it, you're teaching people the number on the scale is the only thing that matters. And I think a lot of us, particularly people who consumed the show in that time, that was already sort of the messaging, is that your weight is the only thing that matters. And I think when you see a show like The Biggest Loser, it absolutely perpetuates that. The reality is the scale is going to go up and down and change over time, especially if you are in body recomposition. That's the beauty of body recomposition, is that you might gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. And if you do, you may see very minimal, if any, changes on the scale, because that's the beauty of body recomposition. That's kind of like the whole point of this thing. When I look at myself now, I am roughly 112 to 115 pounds in a given day. Yes, that's my range. I genuinely have a range from week to week. It depends on how much water I'm carrying. There's so many factors involved. But the point is that if you look at me now at 115 pounds to 112 to 115 pounds, and then you look at me when I was younger, probably weighing around 110, 115 pounds, you can clearly see I look different than I did then because I have more muscle. I have a different body composition. I have more muscle, less fat. Some people have more fat, less muscle, and so forth and so on. And so to quantify it and say that this number is the thing that matters. And also, can we just talk about how of an unfair advantage women had on the show because of the way that things work? How do they have men competing against women? Because women hold more water weight than men do. Anyway, I hadn't even thought of that until just this very moment. And the other thing is that your value as a human being, whether success or failure, is not determined by what that single number is on the scale. And so for many people, it signals, yes, I'm a failure because I didn't lose weight, or yes, I'm not good enough because I didn't lose X number of pounds. And so it entirely misses the point. And yes, I know some of you are going to say, Alexandria, you're way overthinking this. This is just a reality TV show. But The problem with all the things that I'm going to discuss today is the same issue that I take with a lot of the things that I see on TikTok and social media. The problem is that once your brain sees something enough times, that familiarity bias makes you think that it's normal, and it normalizes things that didn't used to be normalized, in the same way that we've normalized massive, skincare collections, and we've normalized massive makeup collections, and we've normalized these like body care hauls once a week. We've normalized all of these things. And so when you see something enough times, your brain is like, oh yeah, that's normal. That's totally what we do. And so that's why some of this is such a huge problem if you don't see through it. If you can see it, then it's fine. But if you don't see it, then you run the risk of thinking, oh, hey, wait, that's totally normal, because your brain doesn't know the difference. Let's also talk about the idea that this was truly rage bait before rage bait. Even the producer of the show mentions like the naming of the show, The Biggest Loser, was done for that very reason. He doesn't call it rage bait, and we didn't really have the term rage bait at the time, but that's exactly what he's talking about. It was rage bait before rage bait. People were tuning in to The Biggest Loser, and they're like, okay, The Biggest Loser. Well, think about what that means or used to mean. I don't think we even use the term loser.
Okay. Loser, who would choose you? Loser, as if, whatever, with a twist, elbow, wrist, say goodbye and kiss.
But as a millennial, like, you absolutely were called like a loser, like I'm having flashbacks to being bullied as a child, right? Because loser used to have the context of, you suck, you're not good, like people don't like you, you're lame, all of those things. But the idea was to sort of flip that on its head, right? Because you're being the biggest loser because you're losing the most weight. So it was always intended to be the sort of like clickbaity type of show. And then you add on top of it the fact that they were putting these people through like completely rigorous exercises, and you've got people screaming at them. And, you've got these temptation challenges that we'll get into here in just a few minutes. Like, all of those things stack up to be essentially rage bait before the concept of rage bait was even a thing. And I think they knew that going in. I know, again, all of this is speculation. I have no evidence or proof of any of these things. And the producer in the documentary tells the story about how he came up with this idea because he saw an ad from a person overweight at his gym that just wanted anyone to help him. And so that's where like the creation of this show came to be. And that may be true or not true. I don't know. I wasn't there. But, regardless of that, what they had to do was sensationalize it to make for good TV.
In a gym, yelling, screaming, that's good TV.
Which brings me to the focus on and fixation with exercise as a mean to lose weight. How many of you learned from the show, besides just me, that exercise is how you lose weight? Because that's completely wrong. It is completely, totally false. And it's really freaking annoying that it still gets perpetuated as like, that's the way you lose weight. You don't lose weight by exercise. Exercise is the way you move your body. It's the way you stay healthy and feel well, but it's not the key factor in losing weight. A calorie deficit and nutrition is. And again, I understand that this is a television show. Okay. I understand that. I'm not an idiot. I know this is TV, and I know watching people sit and eat healthy, well-balanced meals does not make for good television. I understand that. They acknowledge that themselves, that they knew that, like, they basically knew that the science was not such that, was not the same as like what they were using. And they used entertainment in exchange for knowledge. And again, if you don't know, when you think about when this show came out, we live in the day and age now where there is limitless, maybe to a fault, limitless information and knowledge on the internet about what's available from a nutrition standpoint, right? Like, you can watch and read and look at so many different things. But in 2004 up to 2012, the internet was a thing, but it's not the thing that it is now. Even just in the last like 10 or 15 years as I've been out of college, like I was in college in 2000. I graduated from college in 2013. So like the time of the internet, yes, it was definitely a thing, but not in the same way that it is now. And the other piece of this is when you think about like exercise and like the extreme exercise that they put these people through, it kind of leads you to believe that extreme exercise is the way that you burn calories. Not only is it humiliating, because when you're watching these folks who are in, larger bodies trying to do exercise, at some point it can also be physically dangerous for them, right? To be partaking in these extreme challenges and things like that, and pushing themselves so far that they're like, getting sick or, making themselves like pass out and stuff. There is a level of like physical danger. And of course, I'm sure they all had these, agreements. And at one point she even mentions like, the lawyer basically told me I shouldn't sign this document, but I signed it anyway by her account. And so, it's one of those things where I think these contestants kind of knew what they were getting into when they were signing up for this, and they made the choice to do that. But I also just question, like, when you think about exercise as a whole, that kind of teaches you and sends the message that exercise isn't fun. Exercise is the chore. It's meant to make you lose weight and to make you feel sick and all of those things. And so that makes people not want to do exercise. It gives people a bad taste in their mouth about what exercise is supposed to be. And that really bothers me as someone who realizes and knows, like, the amount of research on exercise and its health benefits are astounding. Like, exercise is basically the remedy for like freaking everything. And so to have it like be displayed in this way and portrayed in that way just really frustrates me, because I think it can keep people who should be exercising, which is really all of us, from doing so because they think, oh, well, I need to exercise to lose weight or to be punishment. And so because we've associated with that, we end up with people not doing that because they've seen not just this show. This is not the only reason, but this type of content perpetuated. Hey guys, if you're finding this video useful or helpful, would you do a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up? It lets YouTube know it's useful and helpful so that it will continue to share it out to others. Hype is also a thing now. So if you're watching this video as it's live, you can give hype points to push it out further, seemingly. And if you love it here, please subscribe. I would love for you to let me be your non-judgy mom friend who comes alongside you to help you reach your goals. I think one of my biggest issues with the show, though, is the temptation challenges that they had. I honestly find this extremely disturbing. I know they do this for the sake of television, but I have a really big problem with this because the reality of like health, weight loss, and healthy living is creating your environment around and like setting your environment up for success. And the show I don't remember who it was on the show, but during the documentary, he basically says that like they set this challenge up because people are going to go and be in the wild and they have to be able to, withstand not eating this like buffet of food. But like, on what planet are you living in this like calorie deficit and somebody like throws you in a room and emotionally manipulates you? Because the guidelines were like, well, I think it was the person who ate the most food, like got to spend time with their family. And like, I just don't know how you do that to somebody. Like, when you think about like the emotional toll that must have taken on them to like, okay, willpower or spending time with my family. I have goals, but I also want to see my family and I haven't seen them in a long time. Like, I can't imagine the emotional toll that must have played. And also when I think about like emotional toll and I think about the show as a whole, it really is highlighted to me. There are no mental health providers on this staff whatsoever. And I can speak from my therapist lens, but also just as a person who has gone through this. And I'm speaking from personal experience, so this may not be your experience. But to me, I find in my personal experience that oftentimes feeling like you need to lose weight or being overweight, and like they shared their stories and showed like what they were going through. And many of these contestants, from my perspective, again, all to cover my behind, for all of that, all intents and purposes, it seemed to me to suggest that they did not feel good about themselves. They did not have high self-esteem. And to them, going on this show was like their last chance at getting fit and healthy.
We were not looking for people who were overweight and happy.
I'm a secret eater.
We were looking for people who were overweight and unhappy.
And what that tells me is that them having just these trainers, and trainers are great. Okay, I'm not poo-pooing on trainers, and mindset is absolutely a thing. But from what I can tell, the trainers were the only ones that were doing any sort of like mindset work with them. And that's helpful, yes. But sometimes we need more than that. If you have lived your whole life feeling like you're not worthy, you're not good enough, all of these things, sometimes you need more than just a trainer to sit with you and say those things to you. Sometimes it does require a licensed professional to sit with you and help you to evaluate your life and how you learned this misinformation about yourself. Because we are all worthy and valuable just the way we are. But it's very easy, especially when you are in this situation and space of like feeling like you need to lose weight or want to lose weight and feeling stuck. That can be a very hurtful place to live. And it's extremely hard. And sometimes it can mean depression and anxiety and various other mental health disorders. And I mean, even, is it Janelle? I think is her name. At one point, she basically is talking about when she gets screamed at by Coach Brad because she wasn't like doing the workout. And you can physically see, I'll see, how much footage I can actually get from like a copyright standpoint. But like you can physically see that she is like dissociating. You can kind of watch it happen, right? She's like completely checked out. And she sort of alludes to, she doesn't say it outright, but she sort of alludes to the fact that perhaps she has some like trauma history. Again, that's just my, my guess. I have no proof of this, no evidence. It's just speculation on my part, but that there might be like a trauma history from her past experiences. And so when she's getting screamed at, she disassociates because it felt familiar to her in a traumatic way. And that's not helpful in any way. That's actually re-traumatizing. And so when you look at all of this situation and you see, yes, it was entertainment. Again, I know that. But when you look at this situation and you wonder why these contestants ended up losing the weight and then gaining it all back, it's because no healthy, sustainable lifestyle practical tips were given to them. They were sent to the gym to work out for hours on end with low calorie budgets that were not adequate to fuel their bodies to feel good. Because you need to eat in order to be able to train effectively and to actually build muscles. If your body is in starvation, you're not going to be able to build muscle because you're not going to have energy to even get to the workout. And so, while I say, again, this is a television show, I just think it's really important that we remember that what we see is not how it actually is. And if you want to live a healthy and well-balanced lifestyle, the best thing you can do for yourself, other than hyper-focus on exercising all the time, because not everybody has all day, every day to work out. There is a sustainable way to work out and not feel like you have to work out all day, every day in order to get fit or healthy or lose weight or whatever that like goal is that you have. It makes me really sad. It's really unfortunate. And I really wish, and I understand that we can't from like an entertainment standpoint, it's just not that entertaining, but I would love to see a show that actually like helped people in the right ways and show people that it doesn't have to be sensationalized. So I'd love to know from you if you've seen the show, what your thoughts were on the documentary, what your thoughts were on the show, and how much of what you learned from The Biggest Loser shaped your health, wellness, and weight loss experience. I'd really love to know in the comments section. So thank you for watching, and until next time, bye friends.